for taking us through this session. I know we did not complete the introductions. We did not complete the introductions, and I take this opportunity to complete the introductions before I make a welcoming remark.
Good morning all. My name is Gilbert Sebihoko, the Director of the Network of African National Human Rights Institutions. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Bonaya, Commissioner with Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Good morning. Dr. Raymond Yenis, Vice Chairperson, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Good morning all. I'm Lei Fang from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Good morning. Good morning. Hamjambo. Asante. Naitwa Roslyn Odede, ndiye mwenyekiti wa tume. Asante.
Asanteni sana. May I take this opportunity niwakaribishe ninyi wote katika kikao ya siku ya leo ambacho mwenyekiti wa Tume ya Kitaifa ya Kutetea Haki za Binadamu atatoa hotuba kulingana na vile maneno ya human rights na fundamental freedoms in Kenya yako kwa sasa. Yangu yatakuwa ni machache. Kwanza ni kuwakaribisha, na pili pia nitambue yale mashirika ambao yanahudhuria hii kikao. Nikianza na ICJ Kenya, karibuni sana. Kenya Correspondents Association, karibuni sana. Social Conscience Initiative, karibuni sana. Embassy of Switzerland, karibu sana. PISR Human Rights Activists, karibu sana. Faraja Foundation, karibuni. IPOA, karibu sana. Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, karibu sana. National Cohesion and Integration Commission, mmekaribishwa. Interreligious Council of Kenya, jisikie huko nyumbani. NCCK, the Network of African National Human Rights Institutions, karibuni. Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, karibuni. All media houses ambao mmehudhuria pia mjisikie huko nyumbani. Na pia niwatambue wale maafisa wa Tume ya Kutetea Haki za Binadamu ambaye pia walisatiti na kutayarisha ripoti ambaye itasomwa hivi karibuni na mwenyekiti wa Tume ya Kitaifa ya Kutetea Haki za Binadamu. Na nataka nimalizie hapo na nimwalike kwa moyo mkunjufu mwenyekiti wa Tume ya Kutetea Haki za Binadamu, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, atuhutubie asubuhi ya leo. Karibu mwenyekiti. Asante sana.
Good morning once again. Is it the weather? Kwa sababu chakula najua mmekula. What is it? Good morning once again. Thank you very much. Thank you, CEO. Thank you so much for organizing this for us. I'd like to thank, first of all, by thanking all of you for just being here today and honoring our invite. I always remember a story in the Bible where somebody laid a big feast, invited people, but when the feast was ready, they all said, "We're sorry, we cannot come." And it was not because they were not hungry, but because you had not been a good neighbor. So seeing you here today means we are good neighbors, we are good friends, and we thank all of you for joining us here today for this. So thank you very much. So representatives of government ministries, departments and agencies present, both national and county government, members of the diplomatic corps, representatives from non-state actors, human rights defenders, both individual and institution, development partners present, quite a number, members of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Good morning. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights makes this public address on the state of human rights and fundamental freedoms in Kenya on the basis of its constitutional mandate as prescribed under Articles 59 and 249 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. This aligns with the Commission's national, regional, and international imperatives as Kenya's national human rights institution, charged with the promotion and protection of human rights in Kenya. Indeed, the Constitution and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights Act 2011 mandates the Commission to promote the respect, protection, and observance of human rights in public and private institutions, and generally to ensure a culture of human rights in the Republic, promote constitutionalism, and to protect the sovereignty of the people. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kenyans, this address comes at an opportune moment as global states gear up towards commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights on 10th of December 2023. The foundational rights document that engraves universally recognized fundamental rights. Nationally, we continue the countdown since the promulgation of the present Constitution, which this year hits its teens. Furthermore, it is now more than a year since the third general election under the 2010 Constitution, and a decade since the onset of devolution, following the first general elections in March 2013. Furthermore, it is not lost on us that as a republic, we are now of a mature old age, as in under a month's time on 12th of December, we celebrate the Diamond Jubilee as an independent republic. That will be Jamhuri Day. Makofi jameni. The Commission is cognizant that this address likewise comes hot in the heels of the State of Nation address by His Excellency the President, which he read on the November 9, 2023, pursuant to Article 132 of the Constitution. We note His Excellency's acknowledgement that citizen freedoms and fundamental rights lie at the heart of enterprise and democracy. Over the years, the Commission has similarly monitored and prepared annual reports on the progress made in compliance with human rights standards contained in the Bill of Rights, as well as in the national values and principles of governance enshrined in Article 10 of the Constitution, which largely encompass human rights principles. As the designated state organ mandated to do so under the Constitution and its constitutive act, the Commission continues to closely monitor Kenya's compliance with regional and international rights obligations. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I now turn to address the human rights situation in the country as follows. On socio-economic rights, Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 guarantees the right on the socio-economic rights, Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 guarantees the right to the highest attainable standard of health, accessible and adequate housing, reasonable standards of sanitation, to be free from hunger, to clean and safe water in adequate quantities, to social security and education. The Commission acknowledges that government's bottom-up economic transformative agenda aims to spur quick economic growth through the 5 priority economic pillars of agriculture, micro, small, and medium enterprises, affordable housing and settlement, healthcare, and the digital superhighway and creative economy. On the right to the highest attainable standards of health, the Commission remains concerned that Kenya is yet to attain the desired budgetary allocations on health of 15% of the national GDP. This is in line with the Abuja Declaration. In the current 2023-2024 financial year, the allocation to the health sector as a proportion of the national budget is a paltry 141 billion, representing only 11% of the budget. We still have a long walk to the required minimum of 15%. Notwithstanding the budget, the quality of healthcare services in public hospitals is grossly wanting, as patients are offered substandard services owing to poor infrastructure, lack of essential medicines, and lack of human personnel. The Commission is concerned at the shortage of healthcare providers across health facilities. Kenya's medical doctor-to-population ratio remains way below the UN World Health Organization recommendation of 1 to 600. As of 2020, it is standing at 1 to 3,797. This is as of November 2021. The Commission also observes that the ratio of nurses to patients and other healthcare providers falls below the required recommendation. On maternal health and child health, the Commission welcomes the progress realized in the number of live births that are assisted by a skilled provider from 41% in 2003 to 89% in 2022. According to the 2022 Kenya Demographic and Health Survey, the report, however, reveals that the proportion of live births delivered by a skilled provider is lowest in Turkana County at 53%, Mandera at 55%, Wajir at 47%, Samburu 57%, and Tana River at 59%. Of concern also is the number of women who receive postnatal check during the first 2 days after a live birth, and these are lowest in Wajir at 37%, Marsabit at 41%, Meru 41%, Garissa 45%, and Mandera at 46%. The Commission also joins the call for the protection of women and girls from obstetric violence, which is mainly perpetrated by medical personnel during delivery. The Commission welcomes the enactment of the Primary Healthcare Act 2023, the Social Health Insurance Act 2023, the Digital Health Act 2023, and the Facility Improvement Financing Act 2023, albeit noting the rushed public participation process. The new health laws have been heralded as a game changer in the provision of comprehensive and quality health care under universal health coverage, especially through allocation of resources to cover emergency and chronic diseases treatment, which would bring much needed relief to many households. Under the new facility improvement financing, public health facilities will now be able to retain all monies raised or received and use the funds to ensure availability, accessibility, acceptability, affordability, and quality of healthcare services. Despite the new health laws, the Commission remains concerned that Section 27(2) of the Social Health Insurance Act 2023 proposes to use a means testing instrument to determine annual contributions from persons in the informal sector. Changing the premium contributions from monthly to annual will impose a great financial strain on Kenyans, thereby discouraging new membership and locking needy households out from accessing care under the Act. The Commission calls for extensive public participation during the development of regulations under the Act and for wider public awareness on the provisions and implications of the new health laws. The Commission commends the government for enacting the Mental Health Amendment Act 2022, which clearly outlines the roles of both national and county governments towards the prevention, care, and treatment of persons with mental illness. Nonetheless, the Commission calls for more to be done by both the county and national government in terms of mental health care, especially on eliminating stigma, improving access infrastructure, human resource, addressing the cost of treatment, as well as the setting up of county mental health councils. The Commission further calls for more support, including funding of the Kenya Board of Mental Health to enable it effectively carry out its mandate under the Act. The Commission further observes that on 26 June 2023, His Excellency unveiled the Kenya Health Human Resource Advisory Council, established under Section 30 of the Health Act, which has taken long to get going. The National Commission calls for the improved collaboration between the national government through the Ministry of Health and county governments to enhance delivery of healthcare services across the country, especially in the rural and marginalized areas. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kenyans, on the right to education, the Commission has been monitoring the rollout of the competency-based curriculum and has engaged the Presidential Working Party on education reform in Kenya with recommendations on mainstreaming a human rights-based approach to education. The Commission notes that the government's commitment to attaining 100% transition from primary to secondary school and efforts to transition and place grade 7 learners to junior secondary schools under the CBC. The Commission, however, remains concerned over the confusion in the transition process that saw about 160,000 learners left out of school, out of which 50,143 did not join junior secondary schools, and about 111,046 did not join Form 1, despite the Ministry of Education's efforts towards 100% transition. The Commission welcomes efforts towards bridging the teacher-student ratio, noting the announcement by the President of the recruitment of 56,750 new teachers to meet the shortage that crippled the education sector for a long time. Under the Teacher Management Secondary Sub-Program, the TSC is reported to have recruited 13,000 teachers against a target of 15,695 and posted 1,222 newly recruited teachers to schools with high shortages in the financial year 2022-2023. The Commission calls on the Ministry of Education to follow up and ensure that there is no repeat of the transition gaps when schools open in January 2024. Further, that the Ministry works towards improvement of the infrastructure in public schools, particularly in marginalized areas, and continue to work towards bringing the bridging the teacher deficit. The Commission notes with concern the deplorable state of university education in the country, with public universities grappling with a Kenya 56 billion debt in unremitted staff pensions and statutory deductions. Notably, the President in May 2023 announced a new funding model for public universities and technical, vocational, educational, and training institutions. The new funding model combines scholarships, loans, and household contributions on a graduated scale through means testing instrument, where students have been categorized as either vulnerable, extremely needy, or less needy. The Commission is concerned that although the new funding model under the means testing instrument framework commenced in the 2023-2024 academic year, that was September 2023, critical issues around its operationalization have not been adequately addressed. Some of the issues are what MTI entails, what the means testing instrument entails, how it is being conducted, and who or which state agency will be responsible, among others. There has been notable delay in disbursement of funds to universities and technical vocational institutions, and this has disrupted learning. For instance, in Machakos University, on 2nd of November 2023, we saw the students going on strike over the same. So whereas the new funding proposal is a welcome move that would address the funding crisis in tertiary institutions, the Commission reiterates that this presents a major policy shift that requires extensive, meaningful public awareness and participation that should be holistic and multi-sectoral so that the vulnerable and marginalized groups are not left out. On the right to food, the Commission acknowledges that food insecurity and scarcity was exacerbated by prolonged drought that affected most arid and semi-arid counties, leading to the declaration of drought as a national disaster in September 2021. The declaration was to be followed by sustained efforts to support affected communities, but sadly, the national and county government's efforts did not resolve the situation. According to the National Drought Management Authority Early Warning Bulletin for September 2023, 2.8 million people face acute food shortage and consequently require relief assistance. From the National Drought Management Authority, the Commission notes with concern that 11 counties, namely Garissa, Isiolo, Laikipia, Lamu, Makueni, Narok, Nyeri, Samburu, Tana River, Turkana, and Meru are experiencing worsening health and nutrition situation. The government's efforts to prioritize agriculture through fertilizer subsidy program and revamping the tea, coffee, rice, potatoes, cotton, and edible oils crop sectors is commendable. The projection that the country will realize a production of additional 18 million bags of maize is desirable, given that it is the staple food for a majority of the households in the country. The reported scandal over fraudulent allocation of fertilizers worth over 10 million to cartels is a blot to these efforts. This calls for conclusive investigations and enhanced transparency in the distribution of farming inputs. The Commission calls on the relevant government ministries to initiate through a participatory process sustainable preventive mechanisms that shall enhance food security and shield its citizens from the perennial drought and famine. Closely related to the right to food is the right of consumers enshrined in Article 46 of the Constitution, guaranteeing consumers goods and services of reasonable quality and the information necessary for them to gain full benefit from goods and services and protection of their health, safety, and economic interests. The Commission notes that the safety of the genetically modified organisms remains contested, whereas some see the value of GMOs in addressing food security challenges, others have questioned the effect of GMOs on health and consumer rights. Environmental pollution, interference with the local organic and natural breeds of plants and animals. There are still unanswered questions raised with respect to the impact on seed and state sovereignty. The Commission therefore calls on the Ministry of Health to make public the 2014 GMO Task Force report in accordance with the principles on access to information and transparency enshrined in Article 35 of the Constitution. Further, in conjunction with the National Biosafety Authority, to undertake a robust and meaningful public awareness on genetically modified products to help the public make informed decisions. On the right to clean water and sanitation, the Commission notes that the International High-Level Panel on Water Investments for Africa in March 2023 asked to track progress and enhance mutual accountability for results in the mobilization of water investments and in peer review mechanisms at all governance levels. States, including Kenya, were asked to allocate at least 5% of their annual budgets to water and sanitation. And and at least 0.5% of the GDP per annum to hygiene and sanitation programs. This is yet to be realized. Moreover, Schedule 4 of the Constitution mandates both the national and county governments to undertake disaster management initiatives. The Commission takes note that the current El Nino rains being experienced across the country had been predicted by the Kenya Meteorological Department in July 2023, with risks such as floods, loss of life and livestock, crop destruction, and the displacement of people. The national and county governments promised to set aside 10 billion Kenya shillings and 15 billion Kenya shillings respectively for emergency responses. The Commission regrets that the response by governments at both levels has not matched the surging situation, which has regrettably led to the loss of 52 lives already and displacement of more than 56,000 people so far, as per media reports. The Commission therefore calls for sustained efforts by county governments towards improved access to quality, reliable and affordable water and sanitation services for their residents. We further urgently call for a coordinated and responsive mechanisms by governments at both levels, as well as provision of basic humanitarian assistance to the displaced families. Furthermore, the Commission highlights the need for effective implementation of the national and county disaster risk management policies. On the right to social protection, the Commission notes that whereas there are a number of social protection interventions targeting vulnerable members of the society, such as orphans and vulnerable children, persons with severe disabilities, and older persons through cash transfers under the Inua Jamii program, the disbursement schedules have not been certain and regular. Although the commitment by the President on timely and prompt disbursement to Inua Jamii beneficiaries is a step forward, the Commission notes that the last mass registration of older persons cash transfer program was in 2016, prior to the process initiated in September 2023. Furthermore, according to the Support Needs Assessment Report for persons with disability and their primary caregivers, launched in October 2023 by the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, many persons with disabilities, particularly cognitive and communication, face registration challenges, and that about 48% of persons with disabilities lacked registration cards. The Commission recalls that the National Assembly in March 2023 resolved through a motion that the national government, through the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, undertakes continuous and timely registration of elderly persons. The Commission therefore calls for public awareness and implementation of timely and clear procedures of assessment and registration of vulnerable groups that are easily accessible, including to those in the marginalized areas. Timely disbursement of cushion funds and adequate recognition and support to primary caregivers of persons with severe disabilities or high support needs. On the right to housing, the Commission notes that in 2018, as part of the Big Four agenda, the government pledged to build 500,000 housing units for the lower and middle income population segments by 2022. By the end of 2021, the 5-year plan had yielded only 431 units, which reflects a 0.8% of the target. It doesn't even make 1% of the target. The provision of adequate housing, therefore, still remains a mirage. The Commission, however, takes cognizance of the ongoing initiative through the State Department for Housing and Urban Development to launch several potential affordable housing projects across the country. 426 potential projects which are set to deliver over 647,922 housing units in informal settlements across the country. As from July 2023, a 3% house development fund taxation for all salaried Kenyans was very controversially effective. Even so, we have recently witnessed destructions of homes and inhumane evictions across various parts of the country, including families in Athi River, Sasimwani, and Kareta areas of Narok County, causing homelessness and further aggravating the plight of the most vulnerable, including school-going children. The Commission recalls that ending all unauthorized evictions and property demolitions, including those that do not follow due process, is amongst the express promises of the current administration in its manifesto. The Commission urges that in its quest to fulfill the right to adequate housing for all Kenyans, the government must respect the rights of its citizens. Any evictions must strictly abide by national and international standards. Furthermore, adequate, meaningful consultations, quality and adequate sanitation, as well as accountability and transparency in the contracts and tenders must be observed in the current wave of affordable housing programs. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kenyans, on livelihood and access to basic commodities, the Commission notes with grave concern that the high cost of living is impeding the enjoyment of economic and social rights. His Excellency, the President, during the launch of his manifesto, promised to bring down the cost of living in the first 100 days in office. Whereas there's been a notable decline in prices of some household commodities, such as unga, due to the ongoing harvests, the Commission remains concerned at the rapidly escalating cost of fuel and electricity. For instance, for the current November-December review period, the Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority has set the maximum fuel prices from 15th November to 14th of December 2023 at Kenya shillings 217 and 36, 203 and 47, and 203 and 06 for super petrol, diesel, and kerosene respectively. In comparisons, the fuel prices for the period 15th July to 14th August 2023 was 195.68 for super, 179.67 for diesel, and 169.48 for kerosene. The Commission reiterates that the rise in the cost of fuel has a huge implication on the cost of transport, food, electricity, and principally all sectors of the household, social, and economic lives and livelihoods. The Commission recalls that the government-to-government oil import arrangement signed early in the year was intended to stabilize supply and pump prices. However, EPRA continues to report an increase in oil landing costs, while the Central Bank of Kenya, in its November 3rd bulletin, noted that there was a decline in international oil prices. This has elicited public debate on why pump prices have not declined. The Commission calls on the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum to foster transparency and accountability in the oil sector to cushion Kenyans from unilateral decision from unscrupulous oil marketers to dictate and hike fuel prices. The Commission further reminds the government to honor its promise to its citizens to lower the cost of living. The Commission reiterates the need for timely disbursements of the equitable shares from national to county governments and budgetary allocations to MDAs to ensure service delivery and provision of basic services. The Commission notes with grave concern the unannounced and disruptive operation of the e-government procurement system, the IFMIS, that has not only paralyzed the provision of goods and services and clearance of pending bills, but has also interfered with the critical roles of oversight institutions, including the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. This, coupled with budgetary cuts, have left some barely able to meet their overhead costs, let alone co-programmatic work. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, now shifting gears from the socio-economic situation, we move to the right to life. The right to life is guaranteed under Article 26(1) of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. The Commission is concerned at the arbitrary killings as well as the cases of enforced disappearance which continue to infringe and threaten the right to life. Investigations have pointed to security agencies and in some cases involvement of non-state actors including bandits. For instance, in the period between January 2022 to June 2023, the Commission recorded 22 cases of extrajudicial killings and 9 cases of enforced disappearance, allegedly caused by security agencies. Majority of the victims being youth aged between 18 to 35 years. In September last year, 39 bodies were discovered in River Yala and the Aberdare Forest. In the month of March 2023, the Commission undertook a fact-finding mission in the counties of Turkana, West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, and Baringo counties amid the enhanced security operations against banditry. Additionally, media reports as of February 2023 indicated that 125 deaths occurred since June 2021 in parts of Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, West Pokot, and Turkana, due to banditry attacks, which corroborates the findings of the Commission. In Kerio Valley alone, at least 40 people were alleged to have been killed from January 2022 to March 2023. In early March 2023, 7 people, including 2 healthcare workers, were killed in a span of 4 days in Marakwet East. In March 2023, in what appeared to be coordinated attacks, bandits killed several people in Marakwet, Baringo, and Turkana counties and drove away an unknown number of livestock. During the political demonstrations that occurred in the country between March and July of this year, the Commission, through its monitoring and investigations exercise, recorded a total of 22 fatalities. The demonstrations, which resumed on 7th of July 2023 during the Saba Saba Day, led to a further loss of 7 lives. Further protests called on 12th July 2023 led to the deaths again of at least 9 people. The Commission also recorded another 7 deaths before and during the 2022 electioneering period. The Commission commiserates with the families of those who have lost their lives and reiterates that the right to life is sacrosanct and one that needs to be respected by all persons. Where it happens, thorough and conclusive investigations need to be carried out. The Commission sustains its call for the criminalization of enforced disappearance and the ratification of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. The Commission reiterates its call for the full operationalization of the National Coroner Service Act so as to support investigation on deaths caused by violent criminal acts, extrajudicial killings, or deaths in custody. On the right to freedom and security of the person, secured under Article 29 of the Constitution, which guarantees every person's right not to be subjected to any form of violence from either public or private sources, or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. The Commission regrets the resurgence of abductions allegedly committed by members of the National Police Service. 2 Indian nationals are said to have come to the country during election campaigns as ICT experts. Mohammed Zaid Sami Kidwai and Zulfikar Ahmed Khan, and their driver Nicodemus Mwanya, were reportedly abducted on Mombasa Road. After a 4-week search, skeletons and items believed to belong to the three were found in the Aberdares. In February of this year, a South Sudanese refugee residing in Kenya, Maurice Mabior Awik Jakbak, was also reported missing after being allegedly abducted by armed men wearing police uniform from his home along Kangundo Road in Nairobi. When another separate incident, Osman Khalif, an aide of the Nairobi County Governor, is alleged to have been abducted on 10th of November 2023 by armed people and has since not been found. And recently, much more recently, we witnessed the brazen daylight abduction of one Jaswant Singh Rai in Kilimani area. Whereas the National Police Service has been implicated in these, no formal statement of confirmation or denial has been issued by the Inspector General of Police. The Commission acknowledges the government's counter-terrorism measures, some of which have started bearing fruits. For instance, during the 2022-2023 period, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution secured 23 convictions on crimes related to terrorism and radicalization. The Commission, however, notes with concern the recent spate of terror-related attacks that have targeted both civilians and security personnel in Lamu, Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera counties. Although reports from the National Police Service on the lives lost remain scanty, media reports indicate that at least 11 security personnel were killed and scores injured. In June 2023, 5 civilians were killed when armed assailants raided Salama village in Lamu County. This shows that with the recent trends, the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, the National Police Service, and the National Counter-Terrorism Center need to enhance the fight against terrorism and violent extremism while respecting human rights standards. During the demonstrations between March to July 2023, the Commission recorded cases where civilians sustained multiple injuries from rubber bullets, bullet wounds from use of live ammunition, injuries resulting from tear gas canisters, and baton strikes. The Commission documented at least 130 verified cases where civilians sustained serious injuries during the demonstrations. Moreover, the deteriorating security and humanitarian situation in the North Rift region of the country, occasioned by increased incidences of banditry, not only led to loss of lives and livelihood, but also displacement of hundreds of people, despite the ongoing security operations. Notably, terror-related attacks have also disrupted lives and livelihoods in the prone areas. Pursuant to its mandate and respecting the African Commission Resolution 275 on protection against violence and other human rights violations against persons on the basis of their real or imputed sexual orientation or gender identity, and following the Supreme Court verdict in petition number 16 of 2019, the Commission closely monitored and investigated waves of incitement and violence against targeted populations on grounds of sexual orientation or gender identity. The Commission recorded 98 cases of harassment, death threats, and physical attacks, 57 cases of forced temporary relocation of persons suspected to be of sexual orientation and gender identity for fear of lives, and 8 cases of threatened evictions from houses. Other numerous attacks in the form of cyberbullying, blackmail, and extortions were also reported. The Commission condemns targeted attacks against any person or group of persons on any ground and calls for timely investigation and prosecutions for those found culpable of perpetrating the attacks. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we now turn to the freedom of conscience, religion, belief, and opinion under Article 232 of the Constitution. It enshrines the right of every person to manifest any religion or belief through worship, practice, teaching, or observance of a day of worship. The Commission notes with concern the proliferation of cultism, commercialization of religion, radicalization, and abuse of followers. This has seen the arrest of several self-styled religious prophets and leaders, including Pastor Ezekiel, Jesus of Tongaren, and Father Pesa. There has been the registration of certain religious outfits, and we take note that the government has set up the Presidential Task Force on the review of the legal and regulatory framework governing religious organizations to address this vice. The Shakahola, or a tragedy in which members of a religious organization dubbed Good News International Church allegedly stabbed to death in Shakahola Forest, under instructions from their pastor Paul Mackenzie, brought to the fore the interplay between freedom of worship and role of the state in protecting the lives and well-being of its people. As at 10th October 2023, a total of 429 bodies had been exhumed, 91 survivors were rescued, who included 25 children, according to our investigation reports. The survivors were kept in a private detention center in Mutwapa and later transferred to prison facilities. Several people were arrested in connection to the deaths. The hearings continue in Shanzu Law Courts. The Commission regrets that the atrocity of this magnitude occurred and was committed in the guise of religion. The Commission underscores that the rights of the survivors, as well as the accused persons, should be fully respected, and that the state agencies should desist from criminalization and re-victimization of the victims and their families. The Commission further recommends to the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government to promptly establish a multi-agency, multi-stakeholder team to facilitate rehabilitation and reintegration of the survivors to their homes, families, and communities. We also call for the expediting of the conclusion of investigation and releasing of the bodies to their next of kin for burial and closure. This is very important, very urgent, and the kin should be allowed to have the bodies of their people so that they can close up, they can finish this issue. There's no reason for further detention of the bodies which, to the best of our knowledge, have already gone through all investigations under the government lab. In the medium term, the Commission advises the state to invest in public rescue centers and safe houses to host survivors of similar incidents, as well as sufficient personnel for trauma counseling. Furthermore, the Commission calls that the religious sector leaders should work with relevant government agencies in ensuring that the freedom of worship does not lead to harm and loss of lives through misguided indoctrination and religious extremism. In the first quarter of this year, the Commission documented reports of burning of a mosque and a church in Kibra during the demonstrations. This is an indicator of religious intolerance and a violation of the freedom of conscience, religion, belief, and opinion. Regarding the freedom of expression and the media, the Commission notes that despite the notable milestones made in protecting the freedoms of expression and independence of the media as provided for under Articles 33 and 34 of the Constitution, there have been instances that have served to undermine this progress. For instance, during the protests and demonstrations between March and July 2023, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, through its monitoring interventions, documented 4 incidents of violence meted against the media personnel by both police officers and civilians. Likewise, the Media Council of Kenya reported that it documented 25 cases of attacks on local and foreign journalists at the hands of the state and non-state actors since the onset of the demonstrations. In the attacks, media equipment and other valuables were lost or damaged. The Commission further recalls the decision by the Communications Authority of Kenya to censor 6 television stations and threat to revoke their licenses over coverage of the demonstrations, a move that the High Court ruled threatened the freedom of media and information. During the 2022 election period, the Media Council of Kenya reported that at least 43 journalists from various media houses were affected by various forms of harassment in 12 different incidences documented by the Council. The incidences included profiling of journalists and media outlets, online trolling of journalists and media outlets, and in some cases, physical attacks. The Commission re-emphasizes that journalists and the media as a whole have a duty to inform the public, and the public has a right to receive the information. As such, members of the Fourth Estate require an enabling and secure environment to optimally enjoy their rights and freedoms in the course of their duties. This environment should and can only be provided by the state as the principal duty bearer. On the right to freedom of association, which includes the right to form, join, or participate in the activities of an association of any kind, is protected under Article 36 of the Constitution. Civic space plays a pivotal role in shaping the human rights culture in our country and in ensuring government's compliance with human rights obligations. Members of civil society organizations, community leaders, paralegals, social workers, media practitioners, volunteer lawyers, and human rights defenders are central in advancing the rights of the vulnerable in our midst and advancing democratization processes in our country. These rights continue facing threats due to the non-operationalization of the Public Benefits Organizations Act 10 years later, and despite court orders. The Commission continues its call for the immediate operationalization of the Public Benefits Organizations Act without further delay. Article 37 of the Constitution guarantees the right to assembly, demonstration, picketing, and petition. The Commission monitored with concern the human rights violations and abuses committed in the context of the protests that took place between March and July 2023, which included arbitrary deprivation of life, arbitrary arrests and detentions, torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment, as well as the persistent restriction and denial of the right to assemble and hold demonstrations. There were several instances of excessive use of less lethal weapons such as tear gas, particularly in the informal settlements in Nairobi. The Commission regrets the violence meted on demonstrators by the police. Similarly, the Commission is concerned at the demonstrators resorting to use of offensive weapons such as stones, knives, lighting of bonfires, barricading of roads, and threatening those not willing to participate in the demonstration. The Commission also noted with concern attacks on the police by armed demonstrators in clear violation of the spirit of the law. The Commission has on diverse occasions underscored that the right under Article 37 requires demonstrators to be peaceful and unarmed, and it constitutes a critical tenet of an open and democratic society. The Commission calls on persons and organizations calling for demonstrations and demonstrators to desist from violence, utterances, and actions that could incite violence. The Commission further urges on the implementation of standards and guidelines on the use of force by security agencies. We wish to stress that national security is subject to the authority of the Constitution and must be pursued with the utmost respect for the rule of law, democracy, human rights, and fundamental freedoms, as stipulated in Article 238 of the Constitution. The protection of the right to property is protected in Article 40, and it guarantees every person the right, either individually or in association with others, to acquire and own property of any description in any part of Kenya. Despite this constitutional assurance, the Commission is deeply concerned over recent trends where people invaded and destroyed private property in Nairobi, Kajiado, Makueni, Nakuru, Bomet, Migori, Narok, Kilifi, Turkana, West Pokot, Siaya, and Baringo counties, as documented by the Commission during its monitoring of the demonstrations, as well as monitoring of the insecurity in the North Rift. As a country that is governed by the rule of law, the Commission calls for conclusive investigations and prosecutions of those found culpable in the foregoing incidences. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kenyans, on the right to access to justice, which is enshrined in Article 48 of the Constitution, it recognizes that access to justice is a basic human right and a means to protect other human beings, human rights, and fundamental freedoms. The Commission commends the following positive strides so far undertaken. One is the operationalization of the Judiciary Fund, established under Article 173 of the Constitution in August 2022. The second is the establishment of the specialized sexual and gender-based violence courts and registries, the establishment of the small claims courts in more than 11 locations across the country, the judiciary's effort to promote an effective system of alternative dispute resolution, including traditional dispute resolution, hiring of more new judges, magistrates, and the small claims courts adjudicators and advocates. The Commission further welcomes the positive legislative efforts towards the decriminalization of petty offenses through the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2022. Lastly, the Commission also welcomes the diversion guidelines developed by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, which will enhance the reduction of backlog and congestion in prisons. The Commission, however, notes gaps in terms of access to formal justice, particularly for the most vulnerable, the indigents and persons with disabilities, particularly those with mental illness, due to absence of or weak substantive and procedural accommodations and the lack of an operational legal aid fund. The Commission calls for expediting the full operationalization of the legal aid fund, enhanced awareness and implementation of accommodations for persons with psychosocial and intellectual and cognitive disabilities. The Commission further welcomes the review and calls for the fast tracking of the enactment of the Prisons Act that conforms with the Constitution and international standards. The Prison Act remains a document that was created over 20 years ago and has not been updated to come in line with the Constitution of Kenya. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kenyans, now turning to the rights of special interest and vulnerable groups, the Commission would like to appreciate the milestone achieved through the enactment of the Children's Act 2022. The Act advances the concept Thank you. Commission appreciates the milestone achieved through the enactment of the Children's Act 2022. The Act advances the concept of the child's best interest as the primary consideration in every decision and action touching on children's issues. The Commission, however, recalls the attacks on children in schools by political actors in the course of demonstrations earlier in the year, which resulted in the closure of such schools on security grounds. Further, the Commission, in its monitoring exercise of the demonstrations, also recorded cases of children who were arrested and detained in other places of detention, a very disturbing trend. The Commission reminds the actors of the provisions of the Children's Act 2022 and Article 53F of the Constitution that detention of a child is a matter of last resort, and further reiterates that the principle of the best interest of a child must take center stage in all decisions where a child is involved. The Commission is concerned that the advisory of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child relating to the registration of Nubian children remains largely unactioned. We urge the relevant duty bearers to immediately take steps to ensure that the rights of Nubian children are not violated. They should be registered like all other children are registered in Kenya. The Commission takes cognizance that the youth form the majority of the Kenyan population. According to the quarterly labor force report by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the overall employment to population ratio in the country for the working age population of 15 to 64 years was 63.4% in the fourth quarter of 2022. Was 63, not 16, was 63.4% in the fourth quarter of 2022. The report further revealed that out of 3 million unemployed people, most of them were the youth. And were the youth in the age brackets of 20 to 29 years. This is very concerning as we have a youth bulge and largely unemployed. The Commission urges that both the county and national governments to avert the current youth unemployment crisis should redouble efforts towards expansion of opportunities for the youth to associate and participate in political, social, and economic activities, including in creative economy, as well as access employment as required by Article 55 of the Constitution. This will enable the enjoyment of the right to dignity, the right to work, hence livelihood, and an opportunity to contribute to their skills and innovation to spur the socio-economic development of this country. The Commission commends the state for ratifying the protocol to the African Charter on the Human and People's Rights on the rights of older persons, as well as the social protection program set in place for the elderly. Article 57 of the Constitution mandates the state to take measures to promote and protect the rights of older persons to, among others, live in dignity and respect and to be free from abuse. Nonetheless, the Commission has witnessed the continued violation of the rights of older persons. Elderly women in particular have been targeted on allegations of witchcraft. In February 2023, 2 elderly women were allegedly lynched in Murang'a County on accusations of witchcraft. The Commission recently carried out a public inquiry to establish the circumstances under which poor and elderly persons in Kisii County were accused of witchcraft and lynched. Similar cases of lynching the elderly have been recorded in Kilifi and Kwale. The Commission calls for heightened vigilance by security agencies and the National Government Administration officers to enhance protection measures, including by continuously creating awareness amongst the public on the rights of older persons, gathering intelligence on potential crime, and employing early interventions as well as ensuring accountability of perpetrators. Furthermore, county governments and community organizations to support community conversations in the affected areas geared towards promoting community healing, resilience, creation of protective resources, and combating harmful practices and beliefs. Regarding the rights of persons with disabilities, the Commission welcomes a number of positive gestures towards promotion and protection of rights of persons with disabilities. For example, the enactment of the Mental Health Amendment Act 2022, which promotes mental well-being and the protection of persons with mental illness. The launch by the Ministry of Health of the Suicide Prevention Strategy 2021-2026 in July 2022. Increased impetus towards suicide prevention and advocacy efforts towards the decriminalization of attempted suicide. The Commission also notes the development of the Kenya National Action Plan on Albinism. The Commission further takes cognizance of the ongoing efforts towards putting in place a responsive policy and legislative framework on disabilities, including National Policy on Persons with Disabilities, the Kenyan Sign Language Bill 2023, the Learners with Disability Bill 2023, and the Persons with Disability Bill 2023. The Commission decries the discrimination against persons with disabilities by political parties and subsequent decision by the IEBC to omit them during gazettement of nominated members of county assemblies in September 2022. According to the United Disabled Persons of Kenya, the UPPK, persons with disabilities have been excluded in the following 21 county assemblies: Laikipia, Kwale, Kilifi, Meru, Isiolo, Marsabit, Taita Taveta, Wajir, Tharaka Nithi, Machakos, Makueni, Turkana, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, Uasin Gishu, Baringo, Narok, Kericho, Bungoma, Nyamira, and Nairobi. The Senate Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity, and Regional Integration has seized of the matter. The Commission advocates for the fast tracking of the adoption of the National Policy on Persons with Disabilities, the National Action Plan on Albinism, the enactment of the pending disability-related laws, including Persons with Disabilities Bill 2023. These are long overdue. The Commission further advocates for the inclusion of persons of all forms of disabilities in design of all structures, development, and advancement in technology to ensure that no one is left behind. Article 56 of the Constitution obligates the state to respond to issues affecting rights of minorities and marginalized groups, including the indigenous people's rights. The Commission takes note of the June 2022 judgment by the African Court on Human and People Rights on reparations for the Ogiek community in Kenya, where it ordered, among others, that the government compensates the community the sum of 157 million for material and moral prejudice suffered. The money was to be paid into a community development fund, which was to be established within 12 months from the date of that judgment. The 12 months have since lapsed. This is yet to be done, yet the time frame given by the court has lapsed. On the contrary, more recently, we have witnessed, sadly, the wanton forced evictions of the forest-dwelling communities in Sasimwani and Kareta areas of Narok County without due process. We note and welcome the conservatory orders against the evictions in the ongoing court matter. The Commission calls for an immediate end to the evictions and calls upon the Attorney General and relevant ministry to ensure the full implementation of the Ogiek decision as recommended by the African Court of Human and People's Rights. We ask that a more inclusive dialogue and sustainable solutions be found once and for all to bring an end to the perennial indiscriminate evictions. The Commission further calls on the government to recognize the Endorois community in line with the African Commission on Human and People's Rights pronouncement and expedite the targeted registration process of the Nubian community. The Commission commends the government for its legal and policy recognition of the rights of intersex persons in Kenya and calls for support in the development and enactment of the Intersex Persons Bill 2023 so as to enhance protection and promotion of the rights of intersex persons. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kenyans, as the designated state organ in monitoring state compliance with regional and international human rights obligations, the Commission is pleased to commend state efforts led by the State Law Office and relevant ministries for the efforts in abiding by Kenyans' reporting obligations at the African Commission and UN Treaty Body mechanism. We support and encourage the ongoing dialogue by the state and non-state actors towards the preparation of Kenya's third cycle Universal Periodic Review midterm report and reporting under the various human rights treaties such as the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The Commission urges for full implementation of the decisions of the African Court and the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. The Commission further calls for the ratification of various conventions, including the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance, the Optional Protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, on the Sale of Children, Child Prostitution, and Child Pornography, the Second Optional Protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Optional Protocol to the Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, the Optional Protocol to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and the International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of all migrant workers and members of their families. In conclusion, the Commission recognizes the positive gains made by the state and non-state actors towards the respect, protection, promotion, and fulfillment of the rights of all persons. Whilst diverse efforts have been put in place, particularly in policy and administrative measures, much more effort needs to be concentrated towards the bread and butter issues, the socio-economic well-being of the citizens. This, in our assessment, is the most pressing human rights concern and threat to every household and most Kenyans today. We commend and encourage the productive partnerships between state and non-state actors and the cooperation and support we enjoy with you, our development partners, and international cooperation generally. Your valued partnership with both government and NGOs and ourselves as a national human rights institution continue to contribute to tangible realization of the rights and fundamental freedoms within our borders. We urge all of us, and indeed all Kenyans, to proudly be defendants and real champions of the Bill of Rights as obligated under the Constitution. This is the only way that as a republic, Kenya will continue to prosper both economically and politically as one people, one nation. That, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is the state of human rights in our country, and I present it to you this day, and I thank you all very, very much for your attention. God bless you.